Next up will be Fiki and MacFadden talking about speed, patience, and vibes, building iOS apps in public as a non-technical designer. Fiki is a product designer at a stealth mode startup designing AI-powered property-related applications. On evenings and weekends, he's designing, developing, and distributing Zin, an iOS app that helps users learn Mandarin through music. As a non-technical designer, Fiki leverages AI tools like Claude Code to build his application. He has built his app in public, filming videos every day on his progress and learnings. And the app has accumulated over 4 million views on TikTok, led to over 1,300 test flight users, and officially launched on the App Store in early January of this year. Well, congratulations. That's a great milestone. Everyone, round of applause for Fiki. Cool. Have you enjoyed the conference so far?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Having a great time, learning a lot.
Excellent. Same. I've had a great time. I'm just sad it's almost over at this point.
Yeah.
Cool. Are we all good then? Oh, wait, no, we're not. We're
just waiting for a
We're getting keyboard up. There we go.
I think I should be good.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, please give it up for Fiki.
Thank you very much. Okay, so today the title of my talk is called Speed, Patience, and Vibes. Just do a quick introduction. I'm a product designer at a stealth mode startup, as you just heard, but I'm not here to talk about what I do by day. I'm here to talk about some of the things I've been playing around with, exploring, and learning a lot from in evenings and on weekends. And that is vibe coding. Vibe coding means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I knew I was going to learn a lot when I started this. I had never tried to develop an app before. I'm non-technical, never coded in my life. So I decided to build in public, do a video every single day as I learn about these tools and everything involved in building an app, because it's not just development, it's also the design, it's also distribution, it's also creating the app icon and all the things like that. So documented everything on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Xiaohongshu, TikTok, a bunch of different places, LinkedIn. So vibe coding, like I said, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It doesn't take long for you to have a conversation about vibe coding before someone will say, oh, now you can build anything. I mean, in fact, there's a website called anything.com, which is like a lovable equivalent. But I was less interested, and I know some people who've been building all kinds of different applications, building one application a week, sometimes one application a day, just to try to test all the capabilities of some of these AI tools. But I was a bit less interested in all the capabilities of the AI tools than I was with a specific idea I had in mind. I wanted to build something very in particular over a period of time and see how far could I get with this project. So I've had this idea in my mind for a very long time, but never had the means to build it. I could design all kinds of screens I wanted in Figma or whatever, but I could never give it the lifeblood it required, which is code. I don't know how to code. So this is a Learn Mandarin with Music application where you just play any type of Mandarin Chinese song and it would have lyrics. You could tap on any of the Chinese characters in the lyrics and expand your vocabulary this way. I was lucky enough that over the course of a few months, I actually managed to get it onto the App Store just last week, a week ago today. So I'm very happy with that progress. And yeah. So I've just given a few broad strokes of my background, vibe coding, and my app. I'm going to go into this in a bit more depth in order to understand how I approach each of these things, because in order to understand how I approach vibe coding, I need to explain a bit of my background. In order to understand why I decided to choose this app in particular, this idea, my background is also relevant. So to put it another way, the talk will be separated into 3 parts: an introduction, the thought that I have towards vibe coding, what it means to me, and what it might mean to other different people, and putting that thought into practice, which is my application. So start with an intro. Before I'm a product designer, I'm Fiki. I have lived in Singapore my whole life. I'm a Singapore citizen, and that's relevant because I've been learning Mandarin Chinese for many years. And I, like many of my Singaporean Chinese friends, and then also others who've been learning Mandarin Chinese, we've passed the level of very basic Mandarin Chinese where the textbooks aren't quite sufficient. We have the basic pronunciation and basic sentence structures, but we just need to expand our vocabulary. And so I've been finding it hard to keep up with it, and I decided to go with a Mandarin Chinese app as something that I wanted to pursue. From a young age, I've been someone who's quite more on the humanities, creative side of things. I've been into theater, music, photography, the arts, and all kinds of creative forms of expression. The first piece of technology I ever owned was a Game Boy Color. Today, this color might seem a bit off and a bit too striking, setting aside Brat Summer, which was a couple summers ago. But back then, this blew me away. When I first saw this, I just couldn't stop staring at it. Even just the curves on the edges at the bottom, the way that it just comfortably sat in my palm, the way that you could adjust the brightness on the left side there with that scroller. I just found it, I was amazed by it. And that was, early 2000s. Around the same time, I think it was 1998, 1999, the iMac G3 came out. Again, I was blown away by this. I'd never seen a computer with a color like this, a shape like this. I don't know if anyone can recognize that chap there in the top left. That's Johnny Ive back when he had hair. So I never owned one of these, but I saw one at my friend's house, and I couldn't stop staring at it. And then a few years later, the iPhone came out, and I really, at that point, became a full-on Apple fanboy. I think it might be okay to say now, because it's been so many years, 2 decades, but back then, the first generation iPhone never officially came out in Singapore. But you could go to Lucky Plaza basement, and there was all kinds of jailbroken iPhones, and I was tinkering around with those all the time. Back then, there was Installer and Cydia before the App Store came out, and I was blown away by this tool as another form of creative expression, creative potential, and all the kinds of different apps that could come onto it. And then when the App Store did come out, I was blown away by that. I also, despite not knowing how to code, it was actually quite easy to jailbreak some of these iPhones after the first few months once GeoHots figured it out. And I started jailbreaking iPhones and iPod Touches for a lot of my friends, $50 a pop. Well, my friends' parents, really. And so, like I said, I became a full-on Apple fanboy and started learning a bit about the history of Apple. And as a form of creative expression, the team behind the Macintosh, Bill Atkinson, especially, who'd come up with this application here, the Apple Paint application or the Mac Paint application, the typography. I mean, he was a photographer. He went on to be a nature photographer himself. There was poets involved, musicians involved in this whole team. And to me, I love this contrast, the difference between tech and some of these creative potentials. And Steve Jobs himself, of course, vibe coding is a new thing today, but Steve Jobs couldn't code himself. He was not technical. But he still had the vision of how he wanted to push something in a certain direction. And that's essentially what we're trying to do with a lot of vibe coding tools. Similarly, I'm sure many of us know people who might have had an idea for an application but couldn't actually implement it themselves. So they went online to try to find developers to actually develop these applications for them in different countries. And they would wait a few weeks, a few months, app would come back, then they would have further clarifications of how they wanted the app to improve. Now we can do that very quickly with just any kind of AI tool ourselves. So I was very attracted to this, Steve Jobs saying that he always thought of himself as a humanities person as a kid, but he liked electronics. Then he read something that one of his heroes, Edwin Land of Polaroid, said about the importance of people who could stand at the intersection of humanities and sciences, and he decided that's what he wanted to do. For me, I've always seen product design as right at the intersection of humanities and technology, so I'm very attracted to that myself. But for the longest time, technology has been a bit out of reach. Now, with AI, it's coming a bit closer, and I feel it's much more real to me, and I'm able to actually play with the material of my craft, which is ultimately code, much more than I've ever been able to do before. So some of the thought around how I approach vibe coding. Many of you probably know that the term vibe coding came from Andrej Karpathy in this tweet that's almost 1 year old, which it almost feels like it was 2 or 3 years old at this stage. And it's eminently quotable. He has some great quotes in it. You forget that the code even exists. When I get an error message, I just copy-paste them in with a no comment. I barely even touch the keyboard because he would use something like Whisper, I'm forgetting the name of it. And then at the end, he says, I just see stuff, say stuff, run stuff, copy-paste stuff, and mostly that works. So that's vibe coding. It gives the hint of it's just chill, it's hanging out, not in a hurry, but not moving too slowly either. Just giving into the vibes and seeing where that takes you. But we see, we've seen many times, if you just give into the vibes totally or even not think about it too much and just ask for a 1 or 2 or 3 sort of functional application and you're just talking about the function rather than the look, this is what you get. Granted, this is changing now. Some of the Gemini models do not tend to output this, but there's still work to be done in terms of trying to drive the design in a particular direction. You don't just want to tell an AI tool what function you want. You want to really figure out what do you want the app to look like and feel like, what are the user flows and so on. This quote really resonated with me from Emil Kowalski, a design engineer at Linear, who said, when the first car came out, consumers didn't care about its color or silhouette because the competition was a horse. But now that cars have been commoditized, quality and details have become more important than ever. And I feel that this is just repeating the same historical cycle again now with this. So this historical cycle is laid out here, where in the early days of software, it was just developers and then shipping. And then some managers came in, build and test, ship again. And then for a good period, and maybe even up to the present in some companies, it was designers come in just to sort of put lipstick on a pig. And that was it. It wasn't thought about as design as all part of the entire process. But now, over several decades, we finally, I think, in most spaces, perfected the form of, this is really a symbiotic relationship going back and forth between designers, developers, testing, and back and forth with managers, and then eventually shipping. And then once you've shipped, then iterating, going back and forth, and so on. So I think we're seeing the same process play out now with AI tools. Very few designers, and actually this is more of a designer criticism, very few designers feel that they should even try to use some of these AI tools. They see some of the output and they feel it's not good enough and they don't want to play with it. So software engineers are really the ones who are going at 1,000 miles an hour, really utilizing these tools. And I hope that designers, more designers like myself, can come into the process. So, like I said, when I said some designers for some companies in the past and maybe even in the present, they would come in and sort of put lipstick on a pig. Design is really about the whole process, as many of you know. It's about the speed, it's about the interactions, it's about the architecture of the entire app. It's not just the patina, it's not just how it looks, it's how it works, as this famous quote by Steve Jobs says. So, AI tools give us a lot of speed. We can move really, really fast and have a functional application with whatever function we want. But I think if we really want to make the most of these tools, we have to have a bit of patience, some discernment, some thinking, some creativity to try to bring it in the kind of direction that we want, and also to try to make it stand out from some other applications. AI should not be, AI is not a vending machine, it's not deterministic, and it should not be treated like a vending machine, but so much software for so many years and decades has been input A equals output B. Now AI is not like that. It's not deterministic, and we have to not think of it as, I'm going to press this button and I'm going to get this result. It has to be more of clay, a mold that we work with, and as a thinking partner to try to figure out exactly how we want our application to look. So we have to have some ideas about exactly how it should be. It can't just be defaulted to AI. And this quote from Sam Altman I found very relevant, where he said, for a long time, technical people in the startup industry have made fun of the ideas guy. People who had an idea and were looking for a team to build it, and now looks to me like they are about to have their day in the sun. So that gets into, how do I put these ideas into practice, my application in other words. So, like I said before, I have been learning Mandarin Chinese for many years. I have found it a bit hard to keep up with it, like many of my friends who are also learning Mandarin Chinese. I've tried to use Duolingo, but I find it's a bit too basic. I've tried to use some textbooks, but I find it feels a bit too much like a chore. But at the same time, I notice a behavior among some of my friends who are learning Mandarin Chinese, or have given up learning Mandarin Chinese but still have that desire, and also a behavior amongst myself. And therein lies the opportunity. What is this opportunity? So, like I said, the problem, we want to improve our Mandarin Chinese, the goal, expand our vocabulary, and in the opportunity lie some behaviors that I've noticed. Namely, that a lot of people who, even if they don't speak Mandarin Chinese, they love going to karaoke, and they'll sing their hearts out in karaoke. They might know every single line that they're singing, how to sing it, but they have no idea what they're singing. They don't know those words. At the same time, there's also a lot of Chinese songs that are going viral on TikTok and Instagram all the time, especially one artist called Sky Is Your God, which pretty much every single one of his songs on his album has gone viral one after another, month after month after month for the last year. So I'll just play this video for you. So that video went viral last year, and reading the comments was really affirming and interesting to me when I started developing the application. So many Singaporeans, this is a Singaporean creator, and Singaporeans were replying, yeah, what language do I speak? I speak Chinese song. Yep, it's me. I learned my Chinese from songs. Why don't I speak Chinese? Well, we don't speak Chinese. We speak karaoke Chinese language. True, I know every word of the song, but I don't know what it means. So this is really, really common in Singapore. Now, those who do actually want to try to learn some of these words have been going through all kinds of practices, including myself, where we might see the song on TikTok. Then we will go to Spotify to find the song, listen to it in full, because TikTok would only show like a snippet of it. Then we might go to Safari and go to Genius Lyrics to look up all the lyrics. Then we'd see a bunch of Chinese characters in there that we don't recognize, so we'd paste them into Google Translate. Then we want to get the Google Translate translation and the pinyin and all the characters in one place, so we'd go over to the Notes app and put it all there. And then we go back to Spotify and listen to the song and open the Notes app and then look at it. Not very fun. Countless apps for one particular goal, which is to expand your Chinese vocabulary. So I thought, why not try to develop something that actually encapsulates all of this in one seamless experience? I didn't know much about code at all, and so I began in Lovable thinking, you can build any app you want. And very quickly I discovered, okay, Lovable is only for web apps. There's actually a different code language if I want to build a mobile application. Then I went to Bolt.new, and I found that the output wasn't up to what I wanted it to be. I kept trying to push it, then there was a bunch of errors, and it kept breaking. At the same time, I heard a lot of people talking about Claude Code. Claude Code had been out for a few months, and I was very much interested in seeing, can I get the most out of this? People were saying this is the one place where you can really have the most control of your code. This was before Codex had blown up as well. So I went into Claude Code in the terminal of Cursor. I used Cursor just as my IDE just to see all my files, but I didn't understand the code per se, but I did have it write up a lot of markdown files, which I'll explain in a moment. So I went into Claude Code and I just explained in natural language what I wanted to build. I said, I want to build an iOS application. I love native iOS applications. I love the interactions. I love the motion design. What's the best way to do it? It told me about Swift. I said, okay, let's go with Swift. What do you need to do? Do you need to download anything? And it was just a back and forth conversation. And then I started going screen by screen, designing each screen. I had an idea. I wanted to look like a music player, but ultimately be an app where you can learn Chinese. So I started dictating to it, essentially. And eventually, after a few months, I came out with this MVP. Not a few months, about 60 days, so 2 months. It was connected to a YouTube API. How did I do that? I just asked Claude. I said, what do I do? Where do I go? I'd go to the Google Cloud website, I think it was, to get the API. Took screenshots of every page. I said, now I'm on this page. What do I click? Where do I go? And then I was very clear on saying, I understand there's a lot of vibe coders who are putting their API keys in the code, and that's a security issue. How do I ensure that doesn't happen? And then it told me. So I never, in GitHub, you won't find any of my API keys, but you can try if you want. So I had this application where it's just lyrics on one screen, YouTube video up top, and then there's an about section that tells you a bit of the context about what this song is, how it became famous, who the artist is, what their sound and style is. And then on another screen is the learn screen, and this is basically a grammar guide. It gives all the key terms, the idioms. It shows some in a different language, so Cantonese, Lan Lao, this guy is your god, uses a lot of Cantonese in his music. But this is primarily a Mandarin application, so it just highlights the Mandarin for the most part. And then also some of the sentence structures that's used in that. So all the while I was doing that, I was very aware that I also needed to think about distribution and how this would go into the world. So remember how I said earlier, all these different applications that people were using. This is a big hint to me. Where can I find my users across all of these places? Of course, Google Translate, you can't really find anyone there, but TikTok, Instagram, you can find a lot of people there. So I went to TikTok, and I will just do a quick demo. I need to share my screen here. Give me a moment. So many MacBooks on the screen mirroring thing. Here we go. So I went to TikTok and just started looking at other people who were in my niche. I started looking up songs, or even typing in, learn Chinese songs, learn Chinese music, Chinese songs, learn Chinese, learn Mandarin. Typing all these keywords to see, are there other people advertising in similar ways? What are they doing for distribution? And I found there's this other app. To my great surprise, it looked very similar to my app, which made me a bit worried. But then later people told me, no, that shows that this is actually a market that you can actually tap into. There is competition. It's a good sign, not a bad sign. So I saw this. And that video got 1.1 million views. And then there was another channel that did this. And this, whoever made this app, they have like a bunch of different channels that are essentially uploading the same video over and over. And so I would save all of this to my bookmarks, study it. I saw another app. And then I thought, okay, now it's time to replicate. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I just see what works already within my niche and replicate. See, will I go viral as well? Sure enough, this video here in the bottom left, 1.7 million views. Shocking. I mean, like, who wants to watch this? I guess a lot of people do. I thought people would want to interact with it, save to flashcards and so on, but just watching it in itself is satisfying. So I made sure to also pick songs that were going viral at that particular moment. Not a song that was going viral a month ago or 2 months ago, one song that's going viral right now so that this has more viral potential. As you can see, people are saying, what app are you using? People would comment saying, what's the name of the app? Where can I find this? And so that's then what gave, and this is before I even launched. So that's what gave me the pressure to then quickly get it on test flight and get a bunch of users to look at it on test flight. One thing also that was quite surprising to me is all the videos that did better were videos that did not have any video at the top. What do I mean by that? So I have two views of my application. One, let me turn it down. One is without the YouTube video at the top. Another is actually seeing the YouTube video at the top. And if you see all the ones that 25,000 views, almost 700,000 views, 1.7 million, none of those have videos at the top. So inadvertently, I was sort of A/B testing here. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was. And it showed me, okay, the ones that actually do better are the ones without the video. People are more interested. The people who are watching these are already interested just in the language. They want to see the Chinese characters. They don't want to see a video. So that told me that actually there's probably not much of a reason to be using YouTube as a way to connect to music. I might as well use something like Apple Music where it has millions of Chinese songs instead. And also I find YouTube really unreliable because in some countries the video would be available, in other countries it wasn't available. So after that I iterated quite a lot. Oh, sorry, one more thing to say as well is TikTok was one mode of distribution. Another was going on Instagram, seeing people who are also funnily learning Chinese in very funny ways. So there's this.
She's raspy today. Let's try that again. Nope, that was too white. Okay, I feel like that was Samsung.
So anyway, that video was going viral, so I decided, okay, I'm just going to comment on it with the pinyin, the Chinese, and the English translation underneath. That blew up, 14.5 thousand views. So I had a link to my test flight in my bio of my profile, and people were clicking on that and going to test flight. So these were two areas of distribution that I found to be really, really good and really powerful. Thereafter, I took all of that feedback in and I developed Zhiyin into a proper application that looks like this now. It has playlists, it has flashcards, it has a dictionary, and the idea is just to go into any song. So let's say we pick, what song should we pick today? Let's do Jumping, or Da Huoji. This is from Malaysia, Malaysian singer-songwriter. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it works. So I'll just turn it down just as I show you how the app functions. So I could go up here, I could tap U and see what it looks like. If I didn't know that Kuala Lumpur is Geelongpur, you can just look it up like that. You can add it to the flashcards in this way. You can copy it. You can even go into, let's say I want to look at the dictionary for this. I can see how it's used in all kinds of different sentences. I can also add these to flashcards anytime. Go back to the song, read about what the song is about, see the key term down there, could add that to the flashcards as well, really get to know the music well, go through the grammar guide, like I said before. Also, what I like to do is when I'm getting ready in the morning, you could just have it like that playing. So that's quite fun. So anyway, let's get back to the actual talk rather than the demo. So I very quickly got a lot of test flight users thanks to that viral momentum. And I'll get into like how I actually built this. That's probably what a lot of you are wondering. I didn't have the technical language, but I did have natural language and all of this. Screenshots, sketches, references to other apps, and references to markdown files that I asked Claude to write after it had finally done what I wanted it to do. Sometimes it wouldn't quite do what I wanted it to do. Back and forth. Once it finally did it, I said, OK, now write a markdown file explaining how that works. And I would always tell it to explain it in such a way, and this is what I'd say, explain it in such a way that both a PM and an engineer would understand exactly how this works, how they could familiarize themselves with this. Why did I say PM and engineer? Because I wanted it both for someone non-technical like myself to be able to read it, and engineer so that it could have some code snippets within it, so it could fully explain it. So screenshots, what do I mean by that? If I wanted an interaction that looked something like this, where, you know, in the flashcard screen of my app, I want to be able to select a bunch of different flashcards if I want to move them to a different flashcard deck or if I want to delete them. So I knew that there was a nice interaction that existed in WhatsApp. I don't know what exactly that interaction is called, but I knew it existed in WhatsApp, so I took a bunch of screenshots of the interaction in WhatsApp, put it into FigJam, took a screenshot of that, and then put it into Claude Code and explained it. So what is that? It's where you press in the top left, select chats, and at that point, a lot of different things happen. The bottom tab bar switches out with a new tab bar. In the top, you no longer see the camera and the plus button. You just see it change to done in the top left. Once you start selecting something, it says one selected in the top left. The circle comes in from the left side. It slides in nicely. And all the text moves off to the right slightly. And then it's highlighted. So I wanted all of that. So I said, look at this from left to right, Claude, and implement this for our flashcard screen. And in one shot, it was able to do it very simply. So that's something that worked really well. Another thing that also worked really well was for individual smaller components. Interestingly, like we used to always start in Figma, but now AI is in a way bringing me back to sketching. So I would just, it's actually much easier to just write a quick sketch of what I want a component to look like on a Post-it note, take a picture, send it to Claude, say, hey, I want this dictionary pop-up to exist for any Chinese character. And can you do it? Again, didn't take one shot this time, took a couple shots, but it was able to do it just from that Post-it note. Similarly, here for flashcards, I knew that I wanted a tap to reveal, and then it would split into two, an X and a tick. Maybe I could have just explained it, but I also found it easy to just write it in a Post-it note. Now, the references to other markdown files. I'll do a quick show of that right now. So I have Pinyin in my application. I found there's a lot of problems with the way that it generates Pinyin. Sometimes it doesn't get the right tone sometimes. But eventually, I was able to put a script over it and make it do it properly. So there's all of this here. Claude Code wrote this after we finally perfected it. I said the same thing. Make sure that this is clear for a PM and an engineer to be able to read through, to familiarize themselves with it, and also if it ever breaks, they can read this document and know exactly how to fix it. So here it explains exactly all the files that they should be reading. It has some code snippets down here of exactly how things work. And you can see in my left side here, I have documents for every single kind of thing in my application that I have slowly built up over time. Originally, I was not doing this. The first time I was just like blind at the wheel, and there was no documentation. And then when I kept running into the same problems over and over, I was like, oh, there's a thing called Markdown that I can do. And now I will just feed it. Like if I ever run into Pinyin problems, I will just copy paste this path into Claude Code and say, hey, there's this problem. It used to work in the past. Can you please resolve it? And we'd work through it together. And so I even have one on Supabase and like all the different things in Supabase that I have going, and so on. So let me go back to the application. And just yesterday, I received my first payment on Julian. It launched on the App Store last week, so... I spent the money on dinner, so that's my MRR gone in one meal, but it's some honest work. So hopefully over time it'll improve from there. So that's basically my talk. There's the speed of which some of these AI tools can give you, but there's also the patience that you should have, I think, if you want to differentiate yourself from some of these other apps. Work with the AI tool slowly to try to come up with something that's both quite interesting to you and might be quite interesting to others. And through that dance between speed and patience, you'll find some very enjoyable vibes. Thank you very much. And if you want to stay in touch, connect with me. Thank you. I don't know what to do now.
I'm here. Hi, everyone. Well done, Fiki. That was fantastic. Congratulations. I remember Adam was saying this yesterday. Like the first time you make some real revenue from your first app, it's so good, right? It's, small at the beginning, but I'm sure it'll just get bigger and bigger from here on. So congratulations, well done. That was an amazing talk. I've never seen someone go from designer to a coder like that. That is definitely a sign of what engineering, I think, will become more like in the future. So fantastic. Once again, everyone, please a round of applause for Fiki.